Hey, I just wanted to show you some video of me working with my Gelli plate. So I've already gotten started here. I'm just adding some various colors of paint to my plate and using my brayer to spread those out. I'm not too concerned with getting all of them blended together, but you'll see at the top I am using a journal where I just kind of spread off whatever leftover paint is on there. So most of the stencils I'll be using for this are stencils that I've made either with digital files or hand kind of drawn and cut. And then I'm also using a ton of junk mail. I hate throwing that kind of stuff away because I feel like it's paper and you can always paint over it. So you'll see where I've used a lot of junk mail, and then this happens to just be a scrap sheet of paper. So the other thing that I wanted to point out here is I don't always use every bit of paint off the Gelli plate before I move on to another paint. The only thing I try to keep in mind when I do this is that I'm using colors that are kind of semi close on the color wheel, so that as you're kind of blending them together they won't turn too muddy unless you want to make mud, and then go right ahead. So you saw there I had pink and then I went orange. Those are close on the color wheel, so they blend together nicely. And then there you can see where I've even pulled up a little bit more of that pink that was underneath there. So I love the way that's coming through on the window. Now here, that's technically called pulling a ghost print when you pull what's left underneath the stencil. So one of the things I like about using this size plate, this one is the largest one they sell. I believe it's 12 by 14 inches. All I know is it's larger than an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So if you have like the 8 by 10 one, or if you have seen that one being used, you always end up with a border around your 8.5 by 11 sheets that you print on, and I like being able to print on the full sheet. So that was really why I decided to go up to this size. And this stencil is one that I drew through the computer and then I cut it using my scan and cut machine. And I really love how these turned out. They have some really cool layers to them. So you can see there, like those squares on top of those colors. It's just something really cool about that. Didn't really get much for that one. I do have to be very careful pulling those paper stencils off the Gelli plate. They get stuck easily. So I'm trying again with this one, and I still didn't get very much, just a couple of little outlines of those squares. So then I'm just kind of coming in and getting some of the other paint off. And I'll be showing you all these prints at the end as well. I do try not to overblend because you can see the spots of green, the spots of blue. I think when you pull through the stencils, it kind of has a really cool effect. So that is actually a little piece of a receipt. And then this print turns out really cool. That bottom portion that was kind of dark, that's actually silver metallic paint. And here, I don't always try to cover up the entire plate. I just kind of cover up what I need. I'm going to use this, it's really cool. It's kind of an ornate flower design. That's what I'm using to kind of create some texture. And then I have just a sheet of black cardstock to the side that I'm stamping off on. So that'll be another piece that I can use for something else. If you do care, if your stamps get a little painty, you can keep a little tray of shallow water that you stick your stamps into. So there at the top there, that was a piece of photo paper. I actually really love using photo paper on my Gelli print. On my Gelli plate. For some reason, that brand that I decided to use for this, it stuck a lot more than other photo papers have before. So I do kind of figure out a way to work around this in a little bit, but the photo paper works really well with getting some of the little stuck on. If it's a little wet, it tends to come off better. So here I'm going to use another stamp, and like I was saying, if you do care if your stamps have paint on them, it's not something that I tend to care about. It can, once the paint really dries on them, it will affect how the stamp actually stamps. I don't use stamps very much anymore, so the ones I have, you know, it doesn't bother me. But if it bothers you, you can wash them really quickly or wipe them down with a baby wipe, or just put them in stamp side down in some water, and it will keep them from drying, keep the paint from drying on there. I really, really love my Gelli plate. It's the thing that I probably use the most in my craft room. So, and here I thought I would try a little something different with applying, kind of trying to apply the paint in somewhat of a pattern. It kind of worked, it kind of didn't. And then you'll see here I actually have this stencil of circles I made using a photo, a sheet protector for like scrapbooking. And those tend to work much better than the paper stencils. As you can see, it leaves more of the paint behind than the paper stencils do, because it's plastic as opposed to paper. So here I'm going to start kind of working through a little bit of a cleaning process. So I'm using some white shimmer paint, and I applied it with a good amount of water. It's hard to see through this application, but there is a bit of water. It's kind of beading up a little bit on the plate. That just kind of loosens up the other layers of paint so that it will come up. You see where I was pointing? Those were the other layers of paint coming through. You can see it a little better on that one. So you had some of the orange and other colors of the greens. And here I'm coming back with that photo paper again. I really, really want that to work again. So my camera is going to cut out in just a few seconds. But what I've discovered here is that if it's wet, then the photo paper won't stick to the plate, and it will actually pick up a little more of those layers. So if you're having some trouble, if you're trying to use your photo paper, try making it just a little wetter. So now I'm just going to kind of walk you through that's the photo paper, so I kind of added some more layers. And I'm really just trying to show you this photo paper. So you can see the pinks and the oranges coming through on those a lot. And those were the bottom layers of paint. And that's what's really cool to me about gelli printing. And here is just another little piece of junk mail, and I loved how those really turned out. They're so cool to me. For some reason those, those off-white squares just pop so well with all the different layers underneath. And here you can see I had some kind of black polka dotted layer at the very bottom, and it's kind of making its way through. You never know what you're going to get with gelli prints. So that has lots of text in it because it's also junk mail. This was a sheet of just plain white paper, so it doesn't have anything kind of coming through, but I do have several layers there. And then there's that envelope. All the prints from here are prints that I'm planning on adding more to. The ones at the beginning, I'm planning on using those as is. But these will kind of they'll go through kind of another layer of gelli printing. That's the way I do it. I kind of create stacks. Some need more layers and some don't. And then there's that metallic paint. I just love how it shines, and then you've got the matte green on top of it. Just really cool to me. And then these were those ones I used towards the end. And I'm just pointing out there that there was a circle. So, and then those two were created with the same stencil. So I really hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to create a couple of projects and I'll link those at the end too. So thanks so much.